Hello, friend. Welcome back. Today I'm going to start a new series called Rethinking My Beliefs. It's been a long time since I've done any of my own content, and people will ask me quite often in the comments, what do you believe about this and what do you believe about that? And I've had quite a lot of time to rethink my beliefs since I went through my deconstruction. And so I would like to start going through some of those topics one by one. And today we're going to set a foundation. And I'm going to talk about one of the biggest shifts that happened for me when I left religion. When I left religion, I did not leave my belief in God or the spiritual and supernatural world or my belief in Jesus or any of that. I've always been a very spiritual person because I've always been a spiritual experiencer. I came here with pre-birth memories. I've always had a strong spiritual connection. I experienced supernatural things in the charismatic branch of Christianity, and that's never been a question for me whether the spiritual world exists. I put that in quotes because actually now I believe that everything is spiritual and that the physical world is actually an illusion. But that's a topic for another day. But one big difference is that now I no longer feel the need to convince anybody else that I'm right. I completely lost that need when I left religion. When I was religious, I thought that I held a certain set of beliefs. And I really truly believed that I had searched and examined and come to the conclusion for myself that I believe these things. But really, they were based more in fear of moving too far away from the religion that I had been raised with. As a Christian, I couldn't see this because I was still so ingrained in that mentality. In fact, I was really into apologetics and I was really big into defending my beliefs. And I heard a lot about how those liberal public colleges were changing kids with Christian upbringing. And I was determined that I was not going to be one of those statistics when I went off into college. And I was really, really proud of me for sitting through all those liberal classes where they taught me to question my assumptions and my preconceived beliefs and coming through with my Christian beliefs intact. The reality, looking back, was that I actually did have a lot of doubts and questions, but I was too scared to acknowledge that. And so I layered it over and over and over on top with reason after reason after reason why my beliefs were right, why Christianity was correct, and why I was never going to stray from that. So it was like I had already decided I'm always going to be a Christian. I'm never going to change my way of thinking. And so I have to layer reasons on top of that, sort of convince myself to stay there, although I never would have even been able to admit to myself that that's what I was doing. The problem is that when something is actually true, you don't have to believe it, you don't need to prove it, and you certainly don't need to defend it or convince anybody else of its reality. The truth doesn't need any of those things. The truth doesn't need to be believed in order to be real. It doesn't need to be defended. It doesn't care if you defend it or if you convince anybody of it. For instance, I have two cats. I don't have to believe that I have two cats. I know I have two cats because it's self-evident and obvious. And how ridiculous would it be if I tried to start convincing my family members that they need to believe that I have two cats? Religion makes the mistake of thinking that truth is a set of correct beliefs. If you find and believe the truth, then you're on your way to heaven. But if you reject the truth, if you reject this correct set of belief systems, or God forbid you don't find it in your lifetime, too bad, you're on your way to hell. So we have to believe the truth and defend the truth and convince everybody else that the truth is true. In reality, truth has nothing to do with correct beliefs. The truth is real or true. You can use real and true interchangeably. So the truth is real because it exists, and as such, it is self-evident and obvious. For instance, if you walk outside and look up at the sky, you will see that the sun is real. How do we know this? Because it's obvious. The sun is there. It exists. It's real. It doesn't need to be proven. It doesn't need to be defended. Nobody needs to be convinced. With a little bit of effort and an open and unbiased mind, anybody can discover the sun's reality. Even a blind person can go outside and feel the sun on their skin. You can study botany and learn about photosynthesis. You can see that the sun exists because plants grow towards it. You can see the sun exists because animals rotate their lives around when the sun is shining and when the sun sets. We can use instruments to study sunspots and solar flares. In the same way, truth is self-evident. It's not dependent on belief. Its discovery only requires an open and unbiased mind. When you discover truth, you lose the need to cling to it as if somebody's going to persuade you away from it and deceive you. You lose the need to defend it as if it could be hurt or altered or changed in any way. And you lose the desire to convince anybody else of its reality because it's obvious to you that anybody can see it if they have even a little bit of desire to do so. Another thing that becomes obvious is that we all have our own perspective, subjective experience of truth. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky. And this is where people kind of get sucked into the tribal mindset around truth of, well, everybody's experience can't be true. But let's just use a simple example. Let's talk about the sun again. So the sun's rays are scattered in our atmosphere in such a way that midday, the sky appears to us to be blue. However, a person with one less or one more color cone in their eyes could walk outside and look at the sky and perceive a completely different color. Somebody could wear sunglasses or colored contacts and walk outside and see a dark blue sky or a red sky or a yellow sky. One thing that's fascinating to me is experimenting with different light frequencies. So I recently bought a red light panel, and I noticed that when I turn it on, a new mysterious world of different colors emerges before my eyes. Browns appear dark blue, pink tones turn gray, my skin turns pale, and the sunlight appears turquoise. I recently also acquired a little lamp which has multicolored light bulbs in it, and when you tap the top of the lamp it will turn different colors. And I've discovered that with each different color of light, the world completely changes. Yellow will become orange, and blue will become brown, and gold will become tan, and it just completely depends on which frequency of light is hitting your eyes. So here we discover a layer of illusion that causes us to dig a little bit deeper. What color actually exists? Who is correct? When you walk outside and look at the sky, is it actually light blue or is it actually turquoise? Well, the answer is it's neither. Color is a phenomenon that happens in our brain. It doesn't actually exist in the outer world. What exists in the outer world is photons hitting our atmosphere, interacting with other rays of light that may happen to be in our environment, then hitting our eyes, and a series of electrical signals between our brain and our eyes determines our experience of color. But the experience of color is very subjective. For all we know, two people could see the color that we have termed light blue very differently, and we would never know. Nobody would have any way of knowing that. Somebody could perceive light blue as another person perceives green, and there would be no way to actually measure this because it's a completely subjective experience. And actually, there's more wavelengths in the sun's rays that we can't even perceive, that don't even create a reaction in our brain to cause us to perceive colors, such as infrared and near infrared rays and ultraviolet light. And some animals, including dogs and cats, can view ultraviolet light. So that means that my two pet cats view the world very differently than I do. So who's correct? Is my vision correct or is their vision correct? The truth is that the sun is shining, but our individual subjective perception of that shining is unique. And that's the beauty of the human journey. We're all right, and yet none of us are right because none of us have the whole picture. None of us can see all of the sun rays and all the myriad perspectives that could possibly hit our eyes. Truth does not change, but we each have individual experiences of truth. We each have our own story. We each have our own journey. We each have a small piece of the whole. And then we can come together and learn from each other's different experiences. I view religions in the same way. Each religious or spiritual path is a way to understand truth. It is a perspective on truth. It is one color perspective on the white light that makes up the whole of truth. All of them are based in human experience. This means that they are not right or wrong. They're just a perspective. They're just a lens that we look through to view the divine, a lens that will change the wavelength of the light that we see. So just like there is no correct shade of blue that the sky is, because blue doesn't even exist in the sky, it exists in our perception. There is no one correct religion that is right for all people. One lens will be helpful for some people and not at all helpful for others. The truth is what each religious and spiritual path is pointing to. It exists independent of religion. It exists independent of subjective personal experience. And it is not needy or jealous or insecure for our beliefs. It is just gloriously and magnificently being what is. The mistake that we so often make is to look at the myriad of subjective experience and say, well, it's impossible for all of these different, seemingly opposing viewpoints to be right. So therefore, we'll take one of these subjective experiences and declare it as right. So we'll take my religion and say, my religion must be right and all the other religions are wrong. You're still mistaking a subjective experience of truth as objective truth. Saying out of the thousands of religions in the world, one religion, my religion is correct, is just as silly as saying my color vision is more correct than my cat who can see ultraviolet light. You have to completely look past the subjective experience to find objective truth. And you have to look for something that is a common denominator to all subjective experiences. That is self-sustaining, self-evident, something that is real no matter what. And this is why we need to get past the tribal mindset that often comes with religion, the I am right and you are wrong, and I have to convince you to see things the way that I do. That's like telling a tetrachromat, which is somebody who has 4 cones in their eyes and can see 100 million colors as opposed to the 1 million colors that a trichromat can see, that their experience is wrong. We don't see that, and our perception is correct. Instead, wouldn't you want to be learning everything you could? Wouldn't you be fascinated by that person's experience? Wouldn't you want to find out what their experience is like? Wouldn't you be trying to ask them, like, can you somehow show me or explain to me what you see because I want to know what I'm missing out on? In the same way, I find the truth to be so self-evident and so simple that it can refract itself into a million different perspectives and still be true. And what we have is a kaleidoscope of colors. Like when you put a sun catcher in front of the window, and all of a sudden these beautiful colors are reflected all over the wall. This is what objective truth is like. The white sunbeam of objective truth shines into the sun catcher of the subjective human experience. And suddenly the world is alive with rich cultures and traditions and personalities and journeys of discovery and experience and mystery and magic and diversity. So I am no longer threatened by somebody having a different viewpoint from my own, and I certainly don't have any desire to change anybody else's perspective. I trust that all are on their path, and I pray for each to have the experience that is best suited for them, whether or not they ever come into agreement with me, knowing that truth, being what is real, is all that actually exists, and that their journey is an important aspect of that. Knowing that I can learn something valuable from each individual expression, and that when we bring our experiences together, we get the whole picture. What is truth? What do I believe truth is? What has my experience shown me is obvious and self evident? Well, that's a topic for another video. Be loved, be happy, be at peace, and thank you for watching.